37 days of Dwarf. Day 7, a week of years. Hope everyone out there is having a good evening this evening. Let's see where we were. Obviously, we need to assign all of our animals to the pasture. There's some that haven't been. And I'm pretty sure Auto Butcher we set up last time will handle that alpaca in just a bit after that. If you embark somewhere that's woodland, I highly recommend periodically trimming back the green hell. If you're playing with elven diplomats, don't do that. But otherwise, yes, trim back the green hell. You're not going to need all the wood you will produce thereby by any means, but you will find that the logs regrow, the trees regrow fairly quickly, and they'll start to block, for example, archery if you have an archer's range up on the second floor here, which we haven't done yet, but we're looking to do eventually. Let's see, what else do we have going on here? Tanning workshops are up. Food stockpiles look good. Underground pasture space. That's what we were getting ready to work on, wasn't it? Now, because this area has cave moss on the ground, it counts perfectly well for pasture space. That's not a problem. Um, we can now assign this entire zone to be one giant pasture, and might as well make it an animal training area while we're at it. And we can pasture our non-hostile grazers, like the lambs and sheep and pigs down here. There is no way that all these animals are pets. I am suspicious that a large number of our animals contributed to the death of that human invader and or the goblin snatchers and or the vampires at some point. And holy hell, they've all got names now. Now, I am not bothering to move the puppies downstairs. They can mature up there with the dogs and they'll be ready for training up there, no problem. I'm not bothering to move the butchering animals like the bunny and the duckling and the donkey. Those are going to get butchered anyway. It doesn't matter what pasture I assign them to, as long as they're assigned to a pasture and they get moved at some point. I do want to move the pigs though, so let's go ahead and do that. Make sure we've got all our pigs and sows and 14 different names to keep track of, so it's occasional that I miss one as I'm going through the list here. So let's go back through it and make sure we got them all. Yep. Looks good. All right. That'll move our pasture animals down here where they're safer than up on the surface. If an invader does show up and has bolts, it'll fire them across the bridge and potentially wound or kill animals. If those are pet animals, we run the risk of irritating a dwarf. Um, Safer, not safe, obviously, since this is only a couple of levels down. If the invaders breach the gates, as it were, they're going to be into this pasture space and butchering pets very quickly. This is a stopgap measure at best. Remember, right now we're using these animals as not just a source of meat and wool and milk and all that other good stuff, but also as a source of security. Intruders to our fortress have only one way in. They must cross this drawbridge. They must enter through this gate right here. They must cross this field packed full of animals and traversing dwarves without being seen, or they must kill everything between there and the entrance. And there's a lot of dogs in there, and there's not even as many dogs as there will be. So what will typically happen for a small number of invaders is that they will come across and then promptly get mobbed by the dogs and any peasants that we recruit to the mob. Um, Having to dodge 100 attacks or 100 attacks around or whatever when they start getting mauled by so many animals at once, they quickly tire, they are dragged down by the mob, and then they are curb stomped within an inch of their lives. So, as was the case with that human bowman the other night, who stood out here and said, "I'm going to take your artifact away from you," and we sicked the peasant mob on him, and between the mob and the dogs, he made it about 20 steps down the moat before they finally dragged him down and beat him to a paste. This is not ideal, but it's a start. This is the most rudimentary form of defense you can imagine. We have the ability to seal ourselves up if something is too nasty, and if it's not too nasty, we can invite it in and pummel it en masse with a huge number of dwarves at once. They're not very skilled, they don't necessarily have all the same weapons, there's no such thing as a coherent equipment or uniform among them. But in Dwarf Fortress, as in real life, numbers matter. If you think you can kick the asses of 100 first graders at the same time, I encourage you to try. And sooner or later, they're going to drag you down, and when they do, you aren't going to get back up. Similar principle applies here, but we can improve on this. We can get our dwarves military weapons, we can get them military armor, we can get them training. So that's going to be what we're going to look to do, hopefully tonight, if we have enough time, I'm hoping. Um, we've already fought off our first siege when we bludgeoned those snatchers to death, and that scared the siege out of their wits, and they left. So I'm hoping that we. Oh, see, we're gonna have to keep doing this. This is gonna happen over and over. We're gonna have a real annoyance here, but we'll ride herd on it for a while and get it done. Since this mine level is all damp, we might as well build a door here too while we're at it. Turn planning mode on and make sure we get a door in here when we get doors made. There we go. And that door will work perfectly for keeping the water back for now. I can always wall it up later, but any flood that's too great for us to deal with will be kept back by that door, and we can always wall it off if we have to keep it from being opened later. Stuff to share. What do we want? Well, we want leather. Specifically, we want common leather. We want dog leather, and cat leather, and mule leather, donkey leather, horse leather, big goat. And why not chicken leather too? I don't need a wide variety of types, just a handful of those. Silk cloth. We will take silk cloth. We will take. Nah, I'll make my own plant cloth. We're getting ready to do that now. Metal bars. We'll take all the metal bars they can bring us. Every metal bar they can bring, even the lead bars, we'll take them all. We can make something out of them. We can make coins out of them. We can make something out of them. Small cut gem. We'll take every small cut gem they can bring us. I can socket them into who knows what, make mad bank off of them. Get these all requested here. There we go. Let's see. We requested seeds before, and they only are going to have underground seeds, so that's not going to help us here. Animals could be, a lot of the stuff could be melted down, but this isn't the stuff I'm really looking for. Instruments, we're going to make sure we request some of the instruments, because if we haven't made them yet, I want to get some of them in our. I don't want a high request. I don't want super valuable instruments, but I do want to get some in house, so we have the full panoply, as it were, of instrument types. Let's get some gypsum plaster, because we don't have any way to get that on site easily. Pretty sure you can make quicklime. I'll have to look at that, but I'm pretty sure that's makeable. Let's go back to extracts. We'll get some milk. Why not? Because it's easy to make it into cheese later, and it's cheap. Comes with barrels for free. Might as well. Now remember, the venoms themselves aren't valuable. You could buy them and then dump them, but you might as well order the barrels instead of the venom. Unless you're running into caps on how much you can bring. The only plants they'll bring us are plump helmets, so we could really be exporting plants to them, it looks like. Well, let's see. What garden vegetables will you bring us? Anything interesting? Nope, nothing interesting there. So on down the list it is. Silk thread. Yeah, we'll take silk thread. Silk thread would be a good choice. Never hurts to have more sandbags brought to us. Crystal glass and clear glass are harder to make on site than they really should be, so it's easier to order them than to make them. You could always order more pearl ash, is a little hard to come by. And if you find yourself short on fuel, this is one of the ways you could get more. We have an ample supply of wood to make charcoal with, so fuel should never be a problem for us. But if it bottlenecks because we have so much demand for it and so narrow a bottleneck for the wood to be produced into charcoal, then we could order more here. I don't really think in our fortress we'll need it, but we could. Let's see. Thread and cloth, both of yarn, is a good choice. Although we can make our own, it's never a bad idea to have some extras on hand for these things in case of moods or in case of the need to produce a bunch. And speaking of producing a bunch, it's about time we did some cloth. I don't think we've done cloth yet, so the gist on the trade agreement when he tells you what he's going to pay or charge you for all this stuff, the gist is if you ask for it, you can assume that you're going to pay all the way up. You're going to assume that you pay about double what you normally would. We don't even care. He can charge us double for leather, and we won't even notice because 2 times nothing is still nothing. While the metal bars and the cut gems can get pricey, I mean, you're talking about double the price of gold, double the price of silver. The reality is the mugs rule all. One trade good to bring them all, one trade good to bind them. We could, off nothing but mugs, buy out an entire caravan, but we're going to do better. We're going to do more. Let's see what he's offering first, in case he's got anything really tasty we should go after. Goblets, not at a full price still. He's still only offering 114%, but goblets are in the list. We could start making glass and start making goblets, but that's still a little more costly than mugs, and Rings is doable. We probably have some rings in stock already. The scepters, but they have to be ivory or tooth, so that's kind of hard. Cut gems is not something I would sell, although you could sell them, and double the price sounds pretty tasty. Cut gems are more valuable to us as decoration components being socketed into our items. So the reality is none of this stuff really entices me. We're just going to use the general trade goods set for him. We'll sell coins, or we'll sell mugs, or we'll sell crafts, but we really don't care about his offers. Yes, sir, you go on about your merry way. It's funny, everybody in my fortress is now a doctor because I marked them all with a dining room thought nickname. So everybody's now DR. Dr. Urist. Do you concur, Dr. Urist? I concur. Do you concur? I concur. Now, this limonite here will get us better access to iron. Boots, greaves, mail, breastplate, gauntlet, helm, shield, weapon of choice is a full set of iron armor to be worn over clothing. Um, this does not include a set of pants because the greaves actually cover the legs, and the high boot stacking with the greaves covers the full leg. Um, Mail shirt over breastplate is basic full armor coverage with overlap from the two types that you can overlap. Now, you can get really crazy with dwarven armoring. You can layer things like 6 mail shirts and 3 breastplates or some ridiculous. You'd have to look. It's 6 robes and 6 mail shirts and 1 breastplate, I think, because there's a limit on how much of this stuff can be layered over which stuff, and there's a permit and a remit and the whole 9 yards. But the gist is that this is a basic set of armor, and I don't normally go crazy trying to layer the maximum set of armor onto my dwarf. You can, and it theoretically does help. There's a lot of armor going on there. But it's kind of expensive, kind of fiddly, and not really all that practical unless you really want to get involved into it, and I'm not super sold on it. So we're going to do a basic set of armor for all of our dwarves in all of our squads, just basic iron armor, to get everybody equipped. Now, iron armor is what I would typically say is my go-to. This is what I want as a basic level of competence for my dwarves. The reality is that bronze is, for all intents and purposes, mostly equivalent. Especially if you're talking about, say, blunt weapons. The difference starts to become relatively small at that point. A set of bronze armor will keep dwarves quite well. It's just important to remember that the further down the armor scale you go, the more likely you are to have things that get through. If your guys are rocking out in bone and leather, you're going to have problems with just about every metal implement that comes their way. If your guys are rocking out in copper, you're still going to have problems with bronze and silver and iron and all those other, higher quality weaponable metals that are going to be more likely to get through your armor. Any armor is better than none, but when possible, iron is pretty much what I go to as my basic workaday armor. Now, for my dedicated military dwarves, long term, down the way, as the fortress matures, I like to put them in steel or candy. But to get started, field of military, this is like tyranny, guys. Most of these places are Bronze Age civilizations. The only iron they have is what they scavenge from us. So, hit them up. Load your legion with iron and go to town. You're already at the top of the food chain. Steel is over and above. So this is workable for my initial military, great for handing off long term to my civilian militia, who could then wear a basic set of armor that's been handed off by some, military dwarf who's now rocking steel or candy. Everybody gets armor that way long term. I know that everybody has a certain basic level of protectedness, if you will. For those of you who are interested, I encourage you to go out there and look at all the different stacking you can do and really get crazy with your dwarven armoring. And I encourage you to go nuts and find all the bugs in the equipment system. We'll demonstrate later, but ours won't have quite so much trouble since we're going to have a basic list. If you don't have iron, okay, so let's talk about what do you do if you don't have metals, okay? If you don't have any weaponable metals, you are stuck with bone crossbows. I don't even think you can make wooden clubs, which is kind of a shame. You'd think we could be able to make wooden clubs at the very least. I understand that, complex weapons might be out of the question, but come on, baseball bats? Really? All right, fine. So no wooden clubs. You're left with basically, bone crossbows or wooden crossbows, which function like wooden clubs when you're clubbing people with them. So you can shoot your iron on the hoof, as it were. Goblin invasions who come in will have a smattering of iron, copper, and bronze among their implements. Kill them. Take their stuff. In true murder hobo fashion, this is probably the most efficient way to get iron. It will not, however, get you flux, and more crucial than iron in the development of a steel industry is the presence of flux stone on your site. You can only import 4 boulders of a given type in a given caravan in a given year. So even if you're playing with diplomats, and even if the elves bring you flux, and the humans bring you flux, and the dwarves bring you flux, and somehow you've managed to re-enable goblin merchants and they bring you flux, you get 16 stones a year. That's it. That's nothing. It's nowhere near what you will need to run a successful steel industry for any length of time whatsoever. You will burn those 16 stones in a month and not even look black. It's going to be bad. It'll be ugly. Flux stone is the most crucial way to get to steel. Goblinite can be harvested en masse most easily with a drowning trap. We will at some point demonstrate one of those, but the gist is you invite the goblins in, you put a drawbridge up at one end, you put a drawbridge up at the other end, you fill the chamber with water, you wait a minute, they're all dead, you drain the chamber, you collect your goodies. Dump out whatever's left. If you have copper bolts are actually reasonably decent. Obviously that's not going to cut it against a full-on steel militia, but copper bolts are heavy and dense and will work better than you will expect. If you can get to copper, though, you can start making proper weapons, spears, axes, hammers. At that point, you can start looking at tactics as a way to get your iron, rather than necessarily having to depend on a drowning trap. I'd probably still look at a drowning trap just from safety's sake. It's far easier to drown your enemies than it is to fight them in open combat. And you can call me sneaky, you can call me underhanded, you can call me whatever you like, but if they're going to bring in 150 guys and I've got a military of 30 or 40 dwarves, even if they're super well trained, screw it. Bring them in, pump it in the water, pump out what's left. It's just easier that way. Now, you can trade for bars, you can trade for items, you can trade for whatever you can find that's made out of iron, and it can all be melted down. So if you don't have iron and you have to get it, first you look at your neighbors who are going to invade you and you start looking at them as a resource. How do I harvest them the most easily? You then start looking at those people who won't declare war on you or who can bring you iron without declaring war on you, that is to say, humans and dwarves, and you start importing as much iron from them as you can. Humans can bring you iron, particularly in the form of large iron armor, that is incredibly useful simply for bring it in, melt it down. It's not worth anything to you in the form that it is because dwarves can't wear large armor, but it melts down good. You can always recast it. Once you have iron, in the current version, I note this is always for the current version when I'm speaking in these videos, but in the current version, if you have some iron, and we do, we have some iron, and we will, or if we haven't already, we will make some iron coins. Once you have coins started, you can start what I call the virtuous cycle for your metals. You can start cranking them out and get more back than you put into that cycle. So we will turn our mass dwarven industry loose in a massive parallelized ironworks to produce coins, which will be moved into the depot, broken into stacks of one, melted individually, and then recast as more coins. Repeat. That's how we will get iron. Initially here, we're going to get it by mining it because we have it on site. But if you don't, melting for more than you put in, goblinite in the form of your enemies invading, trading are the three ways you're going to find iron. But of those, the only ones that can bring you flux are having it on site and trading for it. And of those, the only one that can actually support a steel industry of any significance is having it on site. You must embark where there's flux. Now, I'm not saying you can't get by with bronze implements. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying you can't get by with iron implements and never need to use flux. But if it is your goal that your dwarves can crank out the steel, you're going to want to have flux on site. There's no two ways about it. No way ever. I encourage you to stop, if you have spent the time at all, looking at what it takes to run any sort of metal industry. I encourage you to sit down and think about what it's going to take to get a full set of 40 dwarves fully equipped in steel armor and weapons when you have to import all your flux. I encourage you to do that little thought exercise. And if you thought I was kidding you before, you won't when I'm done. So let's move all our crafts this time. Oh, and that reminds me. We need to look at our stocks. How are we doing for thread and cloth? Okay, so cloth is, we've got some rope reed. That's good. That means we're starting to turn over rope reed cloth. That's the first thing I wanted to see. How are we for thread? A few. Good. So we're producing thread as well. Is it rope reed thread too, or have we already moved all that up? We already moved all that up. Okay, so that's fine. That's fine. We can make this work. So let's get a cloth industry running because it's now 2 years in. Our dwarves haven't turned over any cloth yet. We're going to start running into issues where the clothes are going to start rotting off dwarven backs, and I can assure you, nothing makes your dwarves go crazy faster than having to run around for a month with no pants. Uh, Personally, I think I could do it after I got over all the shock looks and stares at my tiny little penis. People would have no problem with me running around with no pants, and I could probably learn to live with that. But if you do that as a dwarf, it's going to so psychologically warp you and scar you that you will never come back from it. You will end up as a psychological cripple and probably end up causing a tantrum cycle in your fortress. So, we want to avoid that, okay? Got to avoid that dwarven shame. They are real into that shame thing, baby. So, what we're going to do is we're going to set up a bunch of queued job orders for cloth items that we need. Oops. Queue. Hang on a second here. And we'll put our dwarves in robes and trousers and socks and shoes and gloves and cloaks. I think they can wear a robe and a tunic, but I'm not entirely sure, and I don't want to find out the hard way. A robe will actually cover their top. I believe it also covers their legs, but don't go there. The trousers will cover their legs. The socks and shoes will cover their feet. The gloves, hat, and cloak are purely extras for a good covering on all our dwarves. Again, better some armor than no armor, and cloth counts. It may not count for much, but it does count. So we'll have to set up a job to produce all of these different items, at least in small quantities, in order to get ourselves equipped. So let's do robes, 10. Oops. Robe, tunic, trousers, socks, shoe, and then we'll put on a glove and a hat for the or gloves, hat, and cloak as well for bonuses. Sorry, hood. Hood. Holy crap, why 200 robes? Holy shit. Seriously? Yes, no, I really mean it. You need to have a stockpile on hand at all times so large that your dwarves could change every piece of clothing in the fortress at once in order to guarantee that your dwarves can change every piece of clothing in the fortress at once if necessary. You do not want to have them in a situation where they're cycling off who wears the worn clothing because sooner or later someone's going to take it off and there's going to be a naked waiting while you're having people swap stuff around. So get out in front of it, crank them out, and get it covered. Literally. I honestly couldn't tell you exactly how long clothes last, but 2 years is starting to feel like to me we're pushing it. When was the last time you wore a t-shirt for 2 years straight and didn't start to look a little worn by the end? Now, I don't know that that's really how they're, especially when you're doing hard labor like this, right? I mean, realistically, modern fabrics aside, even, I mean, you'd shred most clothing in 2 years. But I think that's about the point where you'll start to see where, if you really are concerned, we can start looking at our dwarves. Let's see, we can go to our stocks screen and go down to one level of wear every 2 years. Right. So now we're looking at wear for our clothes, and that's potentially clothing that they brought with them, may have been worn, I suppose, in World Gen, but I'd have to look at that, whether we actually do that or not. What is it? Armor, I guess, technically, not body wear. I keep looking for body wear, and it's not body wear, it's armor. So let's expand these out. So, we've got a bunch of robes and tunics, but you can see they're starting to show up worn. So this is all forbidden stuff down here, stuff that the merchants have brought with them. We don't want to take any of their stuff. But the stuff that's on our dwarves, you can see these little X's here are wear indicators. Little X, big X, double big X, rotted completely. Okay? Little X is the first sign of wear. Big X is pretty worn. Double big X is, holy cow, replace that stuff because it's about to be completely disappeared from your game. If it gets to double X and you ain't replaced it, rest assured your dwarves are going to be unhappy about it already. Naked is just a further step up that line. Having them wear multiple pieces of worn clothing for a long period of time is asking for trouble. Don't do it. Get the stuff replaced. Once we get our rope reed industry up and running, it will not be difficult to produce enough rope reed thread and cloth to turn over our entire clothing industry as often and as regularly as we desire. Just like with most farming applications, it is difficult not to drown in the output if that's really what you want. We also have 268 tanned hides. So let's queue up a couple other things. I like to have plenty of leather cloaks for my proper militia. If my civilian militia is wearing clothing, cloth armor, cloth, and they don't get armor, that's workable. But the guys who are going into combat deserve, especially melee combat, deserve every ounce of protection I can throw their direction. In particular, it helps if I have them using some sort of leather for their cloak. It's just that little extra. It's like their hood. I'm going to try and give them leather hoods instead of cloth hoods. I want to give them leather cloaks instead of the cloth cloaks. And they're going to be trying to wear, whenever possible, metal armor. But it doesn't hurt to arrange yourself some leather armor and some bone armor. Your civilians will pick it up. If they're in the military and you've told them, whatever armor you like, or you give them relatively low requirements and they set partial matches on, they will grab armor wherever they can. Mrs. Nerudin just getting home from work. Alright, so we've got our leather cloaks all queued up. Okay, and so those will get checked periodically. Now, that's great. You're going to make cloth into those, but what are you doing to supply yourself with cloth? Well, that's the next step. We need to make sure we're supplying cloth. Basically, anytime there's thread to be spun, I want them to spin it. So this will effectively set up auto thread spinning. The job above it here will automatically set up yarn into cloth, silk into thread into cloth, and plant fiber thread into cloth. This will allow us to turn this stuff over. Now, you'll want to be careful, especially with your thread into cloth jobs. Make sure that you keep some thread on hand. So in Rally, I don't want to do this at 5. I want to make sure I've got plenty of this. So let's make sure we've got at least, say, 30 of each of these threads, because what we'll run into is they'll burn up the last of the thread and we won't have any for the hospital. And that would be bad. So we want to avoid these guys getting the last of it. They won't use up our thread now. Yeah, spinning thread is pretty much any time we want, but we want to make sure we keep some of that thread on hand. So let's double check our cloak here, make sure we're not going all the way down on our tanned hides. We'll need to make sure we maintain some of those. So let's say we keep 30 on hand. That way we are maintaining some cloth available for the hospital as well. Uh, double check on our... Yeah, see, we did the same thing for shields. We're not using all of the iron bars. We're making sure we have plenty left over if this is the last thing. Technically, it's possible for us to still run dry, which is why I throw in the extra coins way up here at the top. This job gets done first, hopefully. At least some of this job gets done first, so that we've used up some of the bronze for, or the iron for coins, and we have a stockpile of metal set aside in the form of coins. So they have been going to town, if as I recall, on instruments. And let's check in on our weapon stocks. Weapons. How are we doing here? A few a few battle axes, a handful of spears, some crossbows. Only a couple of warhammers, though, so we really haven't started on the warhammers. We haven't produced much in the way of weapons yet. Okay. Did we at least produce... Oops. Did we at least produce some of the coins? Yes, we did. Bronze, I'm betting, right? Yeah, bronze coins. Okay, cool. Cool. And I'm pretty sure we've still got fuel, right? Bars of coal. Bars of charcoal 35, bars of coke 39. I believe that's declined somewhat, so we're going to want to check out our wood area. Probably don't need... I think we got an extra... Let's see, we got an ashery here. Dyer shop, a dyer shop. Bowyer, ashery, wood furnace. We only got one wood furnace, so we're going to kind of cheat a little bit. I normally wouldn't, but we're sitting in the middle of an abundance with respect to fuel. And while normally I like to depend on coal, the aquifer says, hey, if there's any coal here, and I don't even remember if Prospect said there was. Let's say there was. If we were going to dig it out, though, we're going to have to deal with the aquifer over and over and over and over and over until it drives me around the bend and I shoot something up. So, we're going to go around that. We're going to use the charcoal method, and that means we're going to need wood furnaces, and not just a handful of wood furnaces. We're going to need a wood stockpile with wheelbarrows so that we drag wood down here and get it in here en masse, because we're going to want to do the wood burning en masse so that we can make charcoal en masse. Wood burning is faster if a worker is skilled, it's true. But Unless you plan to sit there and have one guy doing all of your furnace work for a while you get it all up and running, it's going to work better for you long term, since it's not a skilled or a moodable job that will interfere with moods, to have a handful of dwarves that are all doing it and the workshops to support it. In other words, I view wood burning as one of those jobs that is better parallelized, at least up to a point. You don't necessarily want to have every dwarf in your fortress doing it. There's not really that much point. But it wouldn't hurt to be able to crank out, say, 50 charcoal in a big hurry by having 10 dwarves each do 5, as an example. In our case, I'll typically turn the hauler brigade loose on it. We have far more haulers than we're going to have workshops. The workshops will basically always have somebody churning out charcoal. Some of those folks will eventually get really good at it, and we can always specialize them into some support job specifically centered around furnace operation if we wanted to later on. Now, I'd love to make this space... Oh, I can't make this space in line. I don't have to make it over here. Never mind. We're going to do it differently, because I don't like making space off to the side if I can avoid it. In order to keep the pathfinding good, I like to keep things in the cylinder. Okay, and assuming we've got some folks dedicated to architecture, we should see someone along momentarily to actually do this properly for us here. All furnaces have to be architected as part of their construction process, so no architect, no furnace. But we've got at least one architect in the building, so we're good there. Now that he's designed the building, someone will come along momentarily and construct it for us. Here we go. And then that charcoal job we've got queued up already, because we already queued the charcoal job. Let's see and make sure we did, but I'm pretty sure we did. Right there, make charcoal. Instead of being queued up only on the one furnace now, it'll start to run all the time. So let's take a look at that. We said, yeah, go up to 200 as long as there's at least 100 logs. Well, I'm pretty sure there's at least 100 logs.
Yes, I'll do it, but no, it won't work.
Interrupted by giant wren. Where was that at? Where is our giant wren? Is there a giant wren in the building? I'm going to actually have to equip crossbow dwarves and try and kill the damn thing because it flew into the building. That one's on the surface. He must have just seen it and got panicked. Or I have a whole lot more spam than I'm getting. But whatever he was collecting to build the furnace, he must have not finished. So we got to re-enable that so he'll get it done. But that's okay. He'll come and finish. Somebody will come and finish the job. No big. Let's make sure we queued up beds. Did we not? Are there no beds in this list? No, there it is. Construct bed. Good, good. Gotta make sure we're making beds so that our bedrooms are getting filled up, and this isn't just planning mode showing me beds where there aren't any. Likewise, we're going to go back with planning mode as they clean out some of this rock, and we will put in the cabinets and the coffers and the doors so that these bedrooms are all finished up. Then we'll smooth and engrave all the bedrooms. Now, let's get to our new labor. task force here. Oops, wrong one. We can hide the babies. Technically, Dwarf Therapist does have a cheat option that lets you set labors on the kids and they'll run around and do work if you really want to go that far. But normally I don't mess with that. That seems a bridge too far to have my infants crawling around engraving my floors. I hate to have to do it, but so long as we're getting new migration waves, anybody that's coming in and hasn't had the meal thought is getting marked as new until we can clear them. After a month or so, we need to check each new migration wave and say, hey, do we have somebody who hasn't started to eat and drink yet? Because if they've gone a month and they haven't managed to find our dining room, something is probably wrong with them. But now we'll know immediately who we should be looking at, because we know we've atomized all the existing vampires. A brand new weaponsmith. Looks like we're going to have a couple of hunters. Why are the best ones always women? I'd really love to use them, I would. I'm really not trying to be sexist. It's just, damn, the birth problem. If there were a way for me to tell that they were ahem in a family way, as it were, so that I could at least pull them off the front lines or tell them to stop hunting where the necromancer is going to come pay them a visit, that'd be nice. Do I really need 10 hunters? No. No, I absolutely do not need 10 hunters. But until I actually form a crossbow based militia squad, this is the easiest way to get folks to train. Simplest, most straightforward, least effort on my part. I don't have to tell them which weapons to use. I don't have to mess around with uh, equipment. I can just say, hey guys, off you go. And they'll go grab the stuff they need and do the equipment. Now, if they start getting mismatches because they're in the militia, maybe I'll have a problem. But we'll deal with that when we cross that bridge when we come to it. For right now, as long as they're getting some hunting done periodically, we're going to be fine. They'll gain extra skill in Mark's Dwarf. They'll level up some of their other skills as well. If they have to get into melee with something, it'll be fine. Now, we do want to start looking, and it does not look like many of my Mark's Dwarves have much skill in anything else, but we do. Oh, we got Spear Squad starting up here. Yep. Okay. Now, for militia dwarves who will be in the military, and I'm going to go ahead and throw this one in the military. Why not? I've got 2 3s. They're both, uh, or at least one of them's a woman. We're going to have to just run with it. We're not going to get enough military dwarves to matter. We're either going to train them from nothing or start with what we've got. So we'll start them off in the spear squad, and then we'll see if we can use them as trainers, maybe. Um, we really don't have much in the way of axe dwarves or hammer dwarves to speak of. So we'll just train them up from nothing. It's not that big of a deficit to train them up from nothing. But if we can get these guys skilled, and if they don't happen to have any male friends in the fortress, then they can serve perfectly well. Um, from a purely utilitarian standpoint, I want to have them hauling when they're not busy. So this is a promotion out of the hauler brigade, but then I have to have them doing some other labors along the way. Keep the wood burning, keep the furnace operating. Now we need to get them something creative. Glass making would be a good choice. Because they can haul sandbags when they're not doing anything else, and when there's something to make, glass is an infinite material that we can crank out like stone. So glass making might not be a bad thing to branch into at this point, since we're making our own charcoal from the surrounding forest, and since there is an ample supply of wood, it might not be a bad idea to just go ahead and pour the heat on, as it were, and go right on into glass making as well. So we can let folks do a combination of metal crafting and glass making, and I don't know, maybe we can get into pottery too while we're at it, and give our dwarves a creative outlet. That craft object need right here, right? All these dwarves need to craft stuff? Yeah, this is how we get there. We have to parallelize this and have enough fuel to support it. Now, the other way around fuel is magma. So this is a great time to talk about how we're going to get there. First, I'm going to need some metal minecarts, and they're going to have to be magma-safe minecarts. So I strongly recommend, whenever you're not sure, and whenever there's been a new version, and whenever you'd like to check again, just to refresh your memory, that you pop out to the wiki and look for the words magma safe. Now, if you forget and you do like me, it'll redirect you. Thanks, wiki. But it's important to note what this means. Magma has exactly a temperature of 12,000 eurists. Full stop. Now, these stones and metals and other materials here all have a melting point, either none, meaning they do not have one, or they are melting points higher than 12,000. For example, nethercap is actually a wood, and it doesn't have a melting point because its melting point is, or its temperature has a fixed temperature of 10,000 urist. It literally uh, products dumped in get smoked, but the logs themselves will never actually burn up in the magma. But you can use things in. So let's talk about what you can do without these and still be safe. Ooh, that bump between monitors. So let's talk about what you can do without those materials and still be safe. Constructions, things that you build out of the construction menu, walls, fortifications, floors. If you have to hit C to go into that construction menu and then you have to size it up and build it, walls, floors, ceilings, those sorts of construction items in that menu All the staircases you can build and the fortifications are all magma safe no matter what you make them out of. If you can get an ice boulder, build a wall out of it, and then pump magma next to it, the wall will not melt. Constructions are not temperature checked. Now, please note, I'm saying very specifically constructions, things from the construction menu. If you hit build and then you hit C, capital C, the stuff here, if built out of materials, is magma safe. I'm not sure about tracks and track stops because they're walkable. But walls, yep, ice walls pumping magma doable. Constructed stuff. Again, not natural, constructed. But other than this stuff right here, the construction menu, if it ain't magma safe and it comes into contact with magma, something bad is going to happen. The something bad that's going to happen depends on the something that's being contacted by the magma, what it's made out of, and what function it serves. But you can rest assured that if magma comes into contact with it, and it's not a construction, and it's not magma safe, it's going to be a very bad time. So, magma safe stuff whenever possible if you're going to work with magma. Why does this matter? Well, we're going to make minecarts, and to make minecarts out of materials, I need something that's magma safe. In particular, a good choice would be iron. We can use iron for that. Iron is just slightly out of the range. But I'd really like to save my iron for weapons. So let's see if we can find ourselves some nickel, which we know to be magma safe. And if we can't find nickel, then we're going to have to see what we can do about doing them out of iron. Because other than nickel and iron, you're looking at things like pig iron, which is just iron, steel, which is just iron, in fact, a lot of iron, and platinum, which really isn't something we're going to find in large quantities to make stuff out of. So, and I'm not even sure if you can use platinum in making minecarts. I'd have to look. I'm guessing you can, but I've never tried. So nickel would be our ideal choice. It's not a weapon metal that we would like to reserve for other purposes, and we may have some on site. I believe we do have garnierite on site. That's nickel. Let's check our stocks list for stones down here at the bottom. And bingo. There's at least some garnierite we've had on site. That means we can produce nickel, and if we can produce nickel, then we can make nickel minecarts. So, we'll put that on our list. Okay, and that'll get nickel minecarts going.
Won't work.
Oh, what are we complaining about? Can't build the wood furnace because somebody else's crap is sitting on the spot. Okay, well, let's fix that. That means as more wood furnaces come up and start running, this problem will go away. Somebody will pick up the boulder that's in the way or whatever that's needed for some what other job, and it will get out of the way. Now, it is possible to have the situation where the boulder for job 1 is blocking job 2, and the boulder for job 2 is blocking job 1, so that they're each blocking one another, and then they'll never finish because if you unsuspend one, it can't move the boulder for the other. Neither one can be first, neither one can be second. So, it at that point you may have to get rid of one, build the first one, and then add the second one to get built afterward. But normally you can build a group of these and not have a problem. Just keep an eye for that fact where if you have two of them and they're both built out of the same material and they're neither one of them getting built, they may very well be sitting on one another's stones. Now, I'm betting that this will allow us to finish that last one, and then we can change the charcoal job a little bit. We're going to modify how many of these jobs we queue up, because since we now have a large number of haulers doing this en masse, let's do a few other things. Let's get us a nice wood stockpile, and we can use that wood stockpile to exercise some logistics here. We're going to go down here, go over here. And then we're going to slap a wheelbarrow on this bad boy of, say, 5. So now we've got our wheelbarrows on this stockpile, and we're going to I think have enough wheelbarrows. Let's double check and make sure we've got... I think we set up a wheelbarrow job, did we not? Maybe we just queued a bunch and didn't actually put them in the list. So, at this point, with this many things going on in my fortress, I'm looking at anything I need to build as a sort of, let's just put it in the job queue, and then if it just gets destroyed, lost, sold, rotted, locked away, inaccessible, whatever, I've got a job out here to make more of them. I can forbid whatever and keep it out of the counts, or, do whatever I have to get rid of some item or change the job at that point. And I know what I've got produced, what I made. You can use the stocks menu for that as well, of course. That's what it's for. But at this point, rather than try to find each individual workstation to build these items, it's much smoother to queue them and then move on. We've got a manager now, it's time to let him do that job. It doesn't even use that much of his time. And our pasture has dried up for the most part. Our butchering is getting done. Let's make sure that, our tanning is getting processed here. See, there's our fresh raw hide getting up there. Good, good. Now, someone we hope should come along and be doing the tanning here afterwards, so that should, we hope. There's another fresh hide getting stacked. Need to check to see if we turned auto to tan off. We will never actually have 10,000 tanned hide or 100,000 tanned hides. But if there's a hide available to be tanned, I want it tanned. I can always suspend or cancel the job if I need to change the reagent conditions if we get to a point where that starts to spam us badly. Alright, so let's pause for a second here. We've got our raw food stockpiles only at about half. Prepared food stockpiles only at about a quarter. And I'm guessing that this is all done. So all of our prepared meals fit in this area. So we can raise that quantity and start to build this out as trade goods. Drinks is well stocked. We're doing good there. Probably could stand to have another stockpile for drinks specifically. So let's look at that. Let's talk about what we do for that. I want to have tavern rooms at some point, and my thinking is we will dig a hole out here, put a staircase down, and then put rooms out here for the tavern for those visitors we may have. Oh, I don't think it'll tell me who the captain of the guard is. Hold on a second. That's him. Cephalabel. Okay. Sure, I'm butchering that pronunciation, but that's okay. I'm terrible at it. Oh, and his wife gets to benefit too, since Columbo now has his own room. And we'll assign the table to him so that he and his wife can now throw elegant dinner parties. And there's his office. And we'll auto-allocate that to the captain of the guard. Auto-allocate to the captain of the guard. Auto-allocate to the captain of the guard. Anytime we put the captain of the guard up, he's got a new room. And we need to assign this back to our mayor. Who is our mayor right now? Our mayor is Nazramal. Nazramal is right there, so we'll put that on, and we'll allocate to the mayor. This is a DF hack feature that means when the mayor dies and they elect a new mayor, we don't have to reset the office. The office goes with the guy who gets it. Current owner is some guy and the woman who was our mayor but then died because we killed her. Unfortunately, dude, you're being evicted. Your fancy quarters are expired, because I thought I did this already, and you've been living way above your means. Go back to the dormitory, you vampire-loving psycho. Yes, it is. You wanted to throw in? There's an announcement. It'll tell me when you put in. There's a chance you can send me a message and tell me what you want him to be named. I'll get it when I'm between broadcasts. But if you've got your name handy, as long as I can verify you. All right. Now, did you send me a message and let me know what you wanted the dwarf to be named? Well, if you check anonymous donation, it'll say that, but I think it still lets you put in a message for that. That's all right. What you want it? Sad boy. That's what we should have called the manager. Hang on a minute. Will do. I don't even have to work on this real hard. See, we've been using DR for the folks who have the dining room thought. So we can cheat and we can find somebody here for you. Hold on, let's do and actually, no, wait a minute. No, no, no. 50 gets you one of our starting 7. You got it, boss. Yeah, it's for charity, boss. That's the whole idea. Well, look on the bright side. If I'd caught your message previously, you could have been the one of the starting 7 that got munched by a vampire earlier. Sad boy indeed. All right, so now we've got that assigned. Let's make sure we've got the auto allocates turned on for all of these so that we don't have to deal with this again, because we forgot to turn that on when we did initially. I should have reminded myself, but I didn't. Auto allocate is a fantastic feature that means if your bookkeeper dies and you reappoint one, his office goes with him. You know, your manager dies and you get a new one, presto, office is reassigned. We don't have to mess with it again. It's just taken care of. It's just handled for us. Reducing a lot of that fiddly memory game that Dwarf Fortress can become due to the number of things you have to keep in mind, the number of systems you have to constantly tweak to keep your fortress running out of the box is nice. It's a little a little brain sugar, if you will, to keep the game flowing smooth. No, see, that's the thing, Dropkick. I do this because it's effective. My demonstrations here are for that purpose. This is I can take it anywhere. It will work pretty much everywhere. I've done it on glaciers. I've done it with necromancers adjacent. I've done it with. I don't do evil terrain because I think evil terrain is stupid, but your mileage may vary there. But I think your primary issue with this design and an evil terrain is simply going to be how fast you can get everybody underground, and then everything else is secondary after that. And if you just dig out the first level as a hobbit hole, and then or drop the wagon into the hole, and then dig your fortress from there, you can certainly use the same design from that point onward without a problem. But no, we have a classic pancake stack fortress going, classic, and I do it because it's efficient and effective. It's prettier when you do the circles, but it's not an aesthetics thing in this case. I'm not doing it because the circle is pretty. I'm doing it because the circle is pathfinding efficient and because the pancake stack design is efficient. Now, if you really want to mitigate pathfinding, you can use smaller circles. Again, the amount of area in your fortress is the amount of area that they have to pathfind through. So the more area you dig out, the more pathfinding is going to happen. That's just the way it works. Okay, so now we've started to get... Yeah, this is only a service entrance. It's not really meant to be a keep in the traditional sense. I might conceivably... I put these posts up initially because I was waiting on this floor to be done at the same time anyway. and it gets the corners done so that I don't have to mess with it later. If we build this up, then I can build these into a wall of fortifications, and I don't have to think about the corners. The corners are already done. If we don't mess with it again, then it just looks like a solid box with 4 fortification blocks sitting on the corners. It would look fine in Stone Sense if you looked at it. It would look a little strange, but it would work. This isn't even intended to be our primary defensive entrance. This is service entrance for our dwarves. Long term, we have them coming in from this channel. Which I still have to keep excavating because it's through the aquifer. And it comes up pretty much right adjacent to the moat. In fact, now that I'm looking at it, a little too adjacent to the moat, I'm going to actually have to fix that. If we'd actually dug that out, that would have been a problem. Need to have enough room on the surface for the wagons to be on the surface before we go anywhere else. And then what we'll do is we'll take a road and take the road around our fortress and then back out to the left, say, so that anybody who's coming in and following the road to go into our fortress is just going to trail around the outside edge, and then we can fill this area between it with traps, because anybody who's coming to the fortress proper is just going to follow the road path, and anybody who's looking for an entrance is going to try to pathfind to our service entrance because it's the shortest path. In the process of them pathfinding to that entrance, they're going to run across trap lines, and then we seal this up, and they're forced to come in through our main entrance, which we will then defend. So, in the sense of a classic castle, I don't really have a keep. I have a stone bunker. And then underground is where our primary keep will be, in a sense of keep. We will set up a firing range right here above this hallway, such that we can... It's not even a pillbox yet because it's solid walls and solid ceiling, so it's literally a bunker. Accessible only through the drawbridge. I mean, bunker is the correct term here. So we will set up a firing area, and the intent of that is we'll put a drawbridge, say here, so that we can still allow access to our archery range when we're all boxed in. A drawbridge here and a drawbridge here, which will fold up and close this area off. Okay? And then we can, on the floor above this, put a small area here where people can stand. Put a door, and then have an area here with an ammo stockpile and another door, and then lead that back to the fortress. And I'm hoping, but it's looking like this level is actually aquifer level, so this could be all kinds of fun on its own right. That could be interesting. We're going to have fun with this, I think, but we'll get it. We'll make it work. The goal being that enemies come in and pass underneath our archers. They have never had a chance to see our archers. Our archers have never been fired upon. They must go past our archers. In order to continue into the fortress, they must allow the archers to pepper them from behind as they move up this corridor. Okay? So you're literally getting shot in the back as you move up this hallway. Archers who miss are potentially shooting your buddy next to you in the back. When you get to this far side, we're then going to have drawbridges that we can seal this area up. In hindsight, I'll probably wall this up and provide like a staircase access to the fortress, maybe on the floor below. Put a little downstairs here and then lead it right back to the weld chamber so that you can access it from a staircase inside, and I can wall this up. Then we can seal this area here if we want. See, in hindsight, I would not put the access to this across from the depot. I want to be able to let the guys out without having to compromise access to the fortress. So, a couple of hindsight things that I forgot on this one, but we'll make it work. So, once that's done, though, we can lock them in here. And then shoot them and shoot them and shoot them and shoot them and shoot them until our dwarves run out of ammo. And when they run out of ammo, they're going to do the same thing the dwarves always do. They're going to try and pathfind directly to their enemy, but we won't let them because, well, there's a fortification in the way and they can't climb over it because they're in a box. So the only other way they can pathfind the enemy is out of the room through the ammunition stockpile to refill their box. And all we have to do is let them in, station them there, lock the door. Ammunition should handle itself. We can put them on patrol between the stockpiles if we need to. We can figure out a way to get them charging themselves up, as it were. Pull them out of the military for a moment and they should go equip their, or pull them out of their activity for a minute and they should go back and try and get more ammunition, and they will have access to that stockpile, so that'll solve itself. If we really want to get hardcore about it, and we may, but we haven't yet, we can set the drawbridges here and here, and then cut fortifications in the wall here, put a trench there, and leave the wall solid on the other side of the trench. And then fortifications here, and trench all of this out back to about, say, here, and put a siege engine or two here firing up this corridor. Done properly, we can have a siege engine firing down the corridor, and any bolts that actually make it all the way down will hit the catch pocket on the far side and be recovered intact, just like the arrows in our archery range. We could then, if we wanted to get really crazy about it, trench out a couple of tiles on either side of this so that there's a catch pocket around the outside and a catch pocket behind here. Put some fortifications along the edges, and basically any bolt that goes up and passes through the fortifications and lands out of bounds, as it were, falls into our catch pockets and is recovered. That's pretty crazy. Siege engines fired down a hallway, though, are potentially really effective. Imagine a log flying down a corridor, and you got the right idea. Ballista bolts ain't fucking around. So, we could go there. And then, if all else fails, well, we're going to be training a proper melee militia. And I have no problem inviting them down in here, peppering them full of arrows until they are panicked, dropping the exit, watching them all scamper out, and just about the time they get out the front door, dropping the front drawbridge so the melee squad can give chase, fully fresh and weapons sharpened, to see how many they can drag down before they get off the map. We could alternate plans. We could do the same double bridge scheme, right? Invite the goblins in, seal up the bridge at the front, seal up the bridge at the back, pump that room full of water. We've already got a drain right over here, so drainage is not a problem for us. You know, drop this drawbridge, let the water flow back out into our already existing drain, problem solved. Some slight risk that we crush a corpse with its stuff, or that we end up with a corpse stuck in the fortifications, but these are minor risks that you can deal with. You just disassemble the fortification, get the corpse, put the fortification back, problem solved. Small risk that some item you care about, floods onto the other side of the bridge and gets crushed. Oh well, there'll be more. It's like potato chips. So, doable. We can set the bridge way back here, and, if we seal this up, way over here, we have a large C-shaped drowning chamber to fill up. If we do it properly, we can even include the archery area as discussed, because what I would typically do is have a fortification line where the archers are shooting through, but on the other side of the fortification line would be a raising drawbridge, with the intent that when the enemies are needing to be flooded, we simply raise the drawbridge. And at that point, what we might do is put the archers over here and have them fire across the hallway, and put the siege engines here and have them fire up the hallway, because, yeah, we can. And then we can use bridges here and bridges here to seal off the siege engine areas, as it were, and the archer target areas, and still use this as a drowning trap. And it'll require a lot of levers and a lot of bridges and some careful use in order to make sure you don't do something silly and flood your fortress. But all doable. All doable. And remember, the barracks is right here, so our melee dwarves are literally training at the end of the hallway. Make it through all this. Maybe we ignored you. Make it through all this. The melee dwarves get a shot at you. If you get through them, we're going to have weapon traps on this side over here, because there's no reason for any outsider to be any further in than the depot and this door right here. Anybody further in is one of us or dead meat. Nobody else has any business further in. So, that's our defense plan. That's what we want to get rigged. Questions so far? That's a lot to go through. And it'll take us a bit to get there. That's down the road a bit. We don't have a trained militia. We don't have trained archers. We haven't even set up our archery range yet. Our hunters are pretty much our only militia, and that's not saying much. We've beat down our first set of intruders solely by virtue of outnumbering them and having a few guys in the crowd who actually had weapons. We're counting on a good guy with a pick to stop a bad guy with a sword. This is not viable long term. But we're slowly... Man, I really wish I could set them to temporarily ignore damp stone and just go to work on this thing. Oh, my kingdom, to be able to ignore the damp stone, or to turn off the damp stone cancellations and just say, mine it out, boys, I don't care about the flood. Spotted sneaking around. Well, where are you now? Where are you? Let's see if you can get out with your teeth intact. Yep, they're going to try and get into our fortress some more. So, we really need to get our wood indoors. And let's see if our wood stockpile is starting to fill up. Oh, that's right. Did we actually give ourselves a wood stockpile? Did we do that? Yes, we did, but it does not appear to have wheelbarrows, or else they are all in action at the moment. Probably a combination of inaction at the moment, now that I'm thinking about it, because we're probably just chewing through the logs as fast as we can bring them in to make charcoal. Okay, whoa, what's that? What are you doing here, buddy? What, do we got a fight going on in here? What is this? Punched his teeth out. Boy, I wish I knew what he said there. Wow. Straight up murdered our hauler. Oh, what is this shit? Oh, what the hell? We are probably going to lose the fort now. Holy hell. Right on. So that's like, and that's our guys interrupting our guys. So I'm thinking that we just got conspiracied. Well, yeah, there ain't much I'm going to do about this. It's on. It's on. They are in the fort, and yeah. Pretty much. I could call out the militia, but at this point, they're not going to fight this. There's too many guys in the fort already. None of them are trained. Grumble, grumble, grumble. Or it was a loyalty cascade. I can't tell because there's a lot of cancellation notices here that involve. I mean, either this was a very big conspiracy, or this is loyalty cascade in a nutshell. Because this is my guys getting interrupted by my guys. I'm thinking Civilization Dwarf got torqued off, punched one of my guys, and we loyalty cascaded.
Listos.
Because, I mean, this is all the way down to... This is every dwarf in the fortress fighting. But this guy attacked our guys. We retaliated. He got deaded. I'm thinking loyalty cascade. Let's go back to the first report here. Hunting, war dogs. Nothing recent here. This is still hunting. Giant dogs. Da, 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 da. No recents. This is still hunting. Not sure how fast it's flushing them. These are... Must be flushing them pretty quick because... I mean, this scholar is apparently involved now. I mean, it's his fight too, he says. Gotta be loyalty cascade. Not sure what kicked it off. Cancels rest. Got my ass kicked. Yeah, I mean, what do you say there, guys? Definitely thinking loyalty cascade. If they wanted to steal something, they're not doing it and getting out. They're sticking around. They're listening to music in the tavern. They're not robbing the place. So, I'm thinking it goes down like this. And this is my 10,000 foot view here. We got that announcement about this guy. Sarvesh Sirbekel. Yeah, this guy. 4 names here. The Marks Dwarf. And I want to say that in his combat report, if it's still there, because holy cow, we got to go way down here somewhere to find it, I'm thinking. There it is. See, it's already cleared out so much of it at this point I can't even see it all. This guy was in a fight with one of our dwarves, I think. And he got picked. And I'm thinking that starts bad things. Not sure what started this fight, but I'm betting he was part of our civilization, because I'm betting he's one of the merchant guards. So they promptly thrashed him and anybody from the fortress who came to his defense, basically everybody, because we have them all in the militia. And then it goes around and around, because anybody who strikes one of them is out of the civilization, and then our guys strike them, and they strike our guys, and it goes back and forth until one side gets the upper hand, as it were. We're going to lose lots. So I don't know. They tried for an artifact, maybe, and there were enough of them to get it done, or just don't see our miner going off on a tear suddenly. This is the first miner report. Let's see. Hauler punches miner. Partial loyalty cascade maybe is the only thing I can think of. What do you think, guys? Got the doctor. Pretty sure they've got most of these guys too. Start from scratch and we do our embark from square one with not 9 aquifer levels? Or do we carry on? We're going to need a bigger graveyard. That's kind of what I was thinking. Let's see how many it is, but I'm thinking we've got so many that burying them all is even going to be a task, but we'll see. Maybe it's not as bad as I think. Maybe I miscount. But that looks like a lot of dead dwarves over there. A lot of dead dwarves. Like the I can't believe it's not butter of dead dwarves. Announcement there I missed where he decided all of a sudden that they were, I didn't see him announce like the other guy did, hey, I'm coming to take your artifact. Then I could see, us going berserk on him all at once like that, but otherwise, not sure. The other possibility, of course, is that one of the merchant's guards was a human, got drunk in our tavern, took a poke at one of our dwarves, they took a poke back, a little harder. Well, let's see if we've got enough miners to actually dig the fort out here. This may be harder than it sounds. don't think... So, none of our dwarves have lost stand or grasp. Yeah, not buying this. Something's wrong there. Not sure that works as advertised. Let's find out. I'm thinking no, but let's find out. Well, you're still up making musical instruments, so yeah, it looks like you did. Congratulations. Oh, sorry. No, I hadn't read yet. Hang on a minute. Now let's see if you've made it. No, you're really pissed because you're running around with no pants. Remember the discussion about no pants earlier? Your pants don't seem to have made it through the fight. And I mean it's the fight there because I mean there's some folks with regular wear, but your stuff like has super wear on a couple of spots, which I'm betting was involved in fight. And your tunic ain't looking so good either. See, so that's why I'm thinking that you. And it's not standard wear. None of these other folks are showing up with double wear markers on their equipment. It's got to be due to fighting. Yeah, see, I bet we look at this guy and I bet we find out he was involved in one of the fights recently. But yeah, we lost 20 dwarves right there. Easily. Maybe more, depending. I didn't check how many we had after the migration wave, but that last migration wave had at least double what it has now. So, of course, the next question I ask is, what happens next year? Do we get another visit from... do we get another visit, another loyalty cascade every year? Wow, I don't think any of our miners survived. We've had this mining job going here. No job, no job, no job. These guys are all injured, so these guys are all just waiting to die. Store item in stockpiles. Store item in stockpiles. So yeah, managed to get all of our miners. Wow, gee. All but 3 of our miners. Real good chance that the remainder, all of the doctors except 1. Which wasn't even the one that we started with, it was one of the others. So hopefully now that we've got him on, we can get back to having a health menu. There we go. And yeah, there's a lot of down dwarves here. None of the dogs appear to have bet, but yeah, at least. Well, I have 2 votes for start new. Anybody else going to say no? The audience rules, kids. That's what we're here for. I mean, we're working through them, I assume. Let's check on our... Actually, let's do another thing here. In the grim, dark future of Dwarf Fortress, none of your doctors will have doctor skill. But they've got hands, and that makes them better than you. Some number of those people will still be alive and intact, and therefore able to do doctoring tasks. Hopefully, like moving people to where they need to be.
Ugh, changed my mind.
We may not meet a mandate during this time frame. But yeah, this will be a bit of a slog. Ah, he's running around with no pants. I'm not sure he's actually surviving with no pants, mind you. He just had none. Let's see. He is resting, which I believe means he's in the hospital. So the doctor has gotten to you. You have been seen, at least. But you have a diagnosis requirement. We need some crutches or nobody's going to be able to move around. Yeah, you've got stand issues. So, problem with your legs, dude. Hard to say, but if the carpenter's not down, he'll start on, yeah, he's doing all right. So he'll start on crutches so we can get these folks up and running. Hopefully our doctor is around doing his doctoring thing because, yeah, they were still recovering wounded. So we are still bringing the wounded back to the hospital at this point. We don't have tables. We don't have traction benches. We weren't prepared for a mass breakout of 30 dwarves injured in the, or badly injured or killed in the middle of the tavern, that's for sure. There's a real good chance our hospital is A, full, and B, a lot of these guys are going to be dead very soon. And then, in the second year of the fortress, something freaky happened and a bunch of dwarves died. And I wish I could explain it better than that, but even the reports didn't really tell me much, and they have long since been canceled. We don't have a well. Yeah, that's good stuff. Good stuff. I know we have empty buckets. We just don't have enough to go around. Not sure these guys will survive long enough to be Soylent Green. I see some stitching going on, so there's definitely been some and there's blood getting spurted, so definitely been some diagnosis and treatment going on here. Some of these guys may get back to work in here soon. You know, we've got a hospital, so some of these guys are going to be okay, but we don't have soap, so infections are going to be rampant. You know, we're going to have guys that are dropping dead from infection 6 months from now. I still haven't heard any votes for stick with it. You folks out in Viewerland are running the show, remember? Okay, well, from the top then. So let's talk about what we did wrong. Improvement, in a sense. In the sense that if you're going to get better at it, you're going to have to stop and think about what you did wrong. And there is always something you did wrong. Make no mistake. There is no such thing as a perfect fortress. And for you folks out there who are kind of like me and have a tendency to restart all the time, Dwarf Fortress is going to love you because it's going to take you 12 hours to get a fortress. You're going to realize you made a mistake and you're going to restart. Um, it's going to love you. Love you. So let's do a copy of this guy. And we'll change the settings for him. Let's rename this. We're on day 7, so let's name him. Although I think it's title him, technically. Oh, nope, nope, nope. Don't do that. Don't do that. We gotta edit this guy first, and then we gotta change the seeds. Now, that'll get us a nice repeatable seed like before. Save that bad boy. Start up a new world. This will be a slightly different world than before. Probably similar-ish. I think I see some tasty-looking volcanoes in the middle of a swamp. Doesn't look like they're spreading out far enough to eat the volcano terrain, so we may be able to claim it for our own. But right there, in the middle of goblins, 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 and goblins, is a volcano, and a volcano, and a volcano, and a volcano. And for demonstrating magma, I can't do it any faster than embarking on a volcano. I can just tell you right now, that's the fastest way to get magma in your fortress. The fastest. Bar none. From the ask questions as we go. 14 days of World Gen ticks off, and we're off to world. We're off to find our spot. We pop up the site. Oops, excuse me. We pop up Embark Assistant and look for his stuff. We load our settings from before. And let's see. Did we say, I think we said Min River. Let's see if we can get the brook this time. And might as well shoot for flat while we're at it, just to say why not. So let's see if we can find that. And you probably won't, but oh, candidates. Candidates. Promptly eliminated. 4x4 and flat with all this other stuff is asking for quite a lot, so I don't expect to actually find it. No, but that's okay. So the first thing we get rid of is flat, because I really want the brook if I, well, not applicable, I guess, technically. I would take it if it was flat, but let's see if we can get that stuff with a brook. Nope, still not going to like it with a brook, so we get rid of the brook. Can we get that? Well, there's at least one of them out there. Where is it? Way down there over there. One world tile and several local tiles. We could embark here. What would that get us? Rocky Wasteland. And Rocky Wasteland. And Temperate Grassland. Savage. Good. Regular savage, or high savage, and high savage good, but not much in the way of, wow, almost nothing in the way of trees to speak of. When this says scarce, what it means is you might have 5 trees. When it says sparse, it means you might have 10. Temperate savanna is not my idea of a good embark site. But we're going to check out the metals here because a swamp and a marsh, with a volcano and a river, excuse me, with a volcano and a brook. I'll take an oddly sized embark for that one, possibly. That's, wow, that's everything. We can build an obsidian caster if we want, right off the surface, no problem. No need to get to the magma sea. That's pretty good. What's it giving us in terms of metals, I wonder? Bronze. We'd get tetrahedrite and cassiterite. Bronze. Lots of bronze, but bronze. And I do not see, I don't believe I see, I'll double check, but I don't think any of these are flux. None of them are these. Basically, a calcium carbonate or a limestone. So that would mean no flux. And I'm betting going wide and narrow doesn't help. No. Still no flux. Now remember, as far as I'm concerned, no flux, that's a no-go if you plan to have steel at any point. So we would not be able to make steel. We'd have to make a fortress out of bronze. And we are not savage humans. We are dwarves. I want to embark somewhere I can actually make iron into steel. What do we got here? No brook, but we get a swamp. Only a shallow metal, which I'm betting ain't the right one. Let's see. Nope. We'd be back to bronze here. Lots of tetrahedrite, plenty of copper, plenty of silver. We could buy any iron we wanted for sure. But again, no flux. And finding flux around a volcano can be challenging, or impossible in a lot of cases, because high volcanism tends to drive out flux. So if you've got a volcano, it's tough to find flux. But not always. Here's an example where we could try to build in the mountains, and I don't normally like to build in the mountains, but you can do it. I know that sounds heretical, but there are practical reasons. If you're deep in the mountains like this, you don't actually have a trade route. You can end up cut off from your neighbors. I don't know if we end up in this case. Dwarves, goblins, elves, and a tomb for bonus points. So there you go, guys. If you're looking for something challenging for yourselves, knock yourselves out. Mountain means no surface plants or crops to speak of. And there's not really a good spot around that volcano to build up in terms of farming and the like. Betting that's grassland, ain't it? Yep, savanna. No flux and bronze. Okay, so plan B. Yeah, we're going to run from start. I'm not sure if it was a conspiracy fire off or a loyalty cascade. It looked like one of the merchant guards may have gotten drunk in the tavern, or somebody got drunk in the tavern, took a poke at one of our guys. They took a poke back, and it just went rip shit. And suddenly, 20 dead, 20 dwarves are dead, and another 30 or 40 are in the hospital. Off to a fresh embark we go. Not entirely sure what happened. I mean, it literally started in the tavern, so it was like somebody got drunk or just they had a name. I guess I could throw out the legends mode and try and figure out who they were and what they were doing. I haven't looked at it yet, though. So we'll run a new world and see if we can find a good spot for this one. Temperate grassland. See, I'd really like to do the swamp, but flux. Gotta have flux. Well, it's going to depend on what you have in mind for fun too. So let's try a different. Let's try a different world here. See if we can find something more to our liking. And I'll poke at a world a couple times, see if I can find something different. So we'll change our settings on this one. We'll And we'll generate this. As you can see, this one is significantly different from the others. A lot more volcanoes down here, and this might be forest or swamp through here, so this might be worth looking. We may get a nice blend of mountains and volcano and forest would be nice. Failing that, it looks like this might be a good aligned swamp, which would mean lots of trees and flux and an aquifer. And if it's good aligned, it also may mean unicorn meat, which I would really like to have. So, we're going to look there. We'll check out this area down here with these volcanoes because these may be in just the right spot down in through here. I'm hoping nobody's built on that one because of the proximity to these roads here, or stream here. So let's do it a little differently this time. I think we'll bring some additional miners for one thing. So you could, in this case, with a peculiarly sized embark, get a bit of the shrubland included into your mountains. And it would be possible to build your fortress underground at one edge and then take advantage of surface farming while being able to take advantage of the volcano as well. So that's, doable. Not great, not terrible, not great. What's that? 3.6 Ronkin, give or take. Uh, and you could, with an oddly sized embark, get this one. Maybe that's starting to get pretty broad. I mean, 6 by 3 is 18, and we're at 16 now, so that'd be a larger embark than I usually take. I think you may even have to go 7 at that point. I would not recommend. Yeah, see, I think you'd have to get to 7 to get the. You can do it like that with the source, but that's kind of obnoxious. You want to be careful about how you dig at a source. That one's probably too deep in the mountains, isn't it? Yeah. But you'd definitely be able to build this one. You definitely would not lack for water along with your fortress. So if you wanted to build, the traditional locked away in the mountains dwarf fortress, you could pull it off here because you have volcano and obsidian and infinite water supply from the stream with no aquifer needed. Now your materials are probably crummy. I'm looking at over here at metals, and you only have one surface metal, so I'm betting you may not even have any. You may not even have iron here. Let's take a look. Yeah, no flux. First problem. But you got plenty of iron. So you wouldn't be able to do steel, but you'd have no problem with that much hematite and that much tetrahedrite. As long as you, I don't see any cassiterite though, so no bronze. You'd be able to do copper and iron, and then you'd have silver and gold. Oh, now isn't that interesting? So there's no aquifer in the forest, but there is in the grasslands, or possibly vice versa, I'm guessing. Plenty of soil, sand and clay, iron, copper, tin in small quantity. But we can always import more tin or make some into coins. Again, as long as you've got it to start, you can make more. And it has marble, so that's flux. So volcano and flux and iron. That's pretty much pocket steel out of the gate. As soon as you can get to the iron, you can get the steel. So I guess if we want to demonstrate magma movement, that's a good way to do it. All right, let's do that. Oh, was it? Hang on a minute. Let's back up. Oh, well, never mind. I don't mind about untamed wilds. That's okay. Just means the animals are restless. The birds are not your friends. So let's talk about what we're going to do differently. This is forested, but we're going to bring an axe and we're going to bring a couple of picks. And like before, we're going to make some. So this is going to eat into our points kind of, a little heavier than I would like, but we'll sacrifice some other stuff to make up for it. Um, we know, for example, that we can gain an abundance of sea or abundance of plants as long as this place ain't a total desert. So we shouldn't have any problem getting food through foraging early on if we need to. Now, obviously, that would cut into dwarven labor again, and so you're back to the old conundrum of do you bring it and not need to make it, or what do you do? Prepared. And so this is one of those cases where I might conceivably go nuts on having the extra barrels. Um, Bringing a few extra drinks till you can get brewing up. And we'll go a little harder into. It'll be annoying, but you'll have to put up with me. If we do it, we can build up a. We'll do it in a slightly different order and more organized fashion, and it'll be done faster. But it will involve a lot of pre-planning on my part, so there's going to be a lot of layout before I ever touch anything once we start. Bear with me, and I'll get there. So as before, we're going to bring seeds, we're going to bring drinks. Let's talk about materials. We know there are logs on site, so I don't really care about bringing logs. We're going to be embarking in a forest. You've seen what that will do. We'll skip it this time. We'll bring 1 unit of coke as before. I don't want to have to wait on a wood furnace. The coal and the malachite and the cassiterite to make our bronze. A few units of silk thread in case of mood. And then we're going to barrel it up a little bit. Anything that's worth 2 points. 2 points, 2 points, all the way down the line. Just add each one. Bang, 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 bang. One of each. All right, how many is that? Let's see. 4, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 32-ish. Okay, which should give us enough to survive initially with a lot of barrels left over that will initially become available and therefore allow us to go right back to harvesting uh, from the forest, as it were, because we're going to have an abundance laying around us. Now, all of that is a little expensive, particularly the dogs. I probably won't bring that many dogs or peahens. Didn't last time, and I don't think we should this time because we're going to need the points. Still pretty expensive, but we need a couple of really good miners to start us off really good. Those guys are handled. A weaponsmith who will double as our grower. That's his mutable skill. Problem solved. A carpenter whose job is really, let's be honest, going to be making high quality beds for us and cranking out bins faster than we were initially with our lack of carpenter. I didn't get to it last time, but we're embarking on a damn volcano. At this point, making glass is pretty much assured. Glass is embarking on a place with iron and flux and a volcano is pocket steel, but it's also if it's got sand, it's pocket glass, and if there's clay, then it's pocket pottery. I tend to train an engraver. We had engravers who were well above quality 5 by the time we had areas that they might want to be engraving. If it's important to you that you have the ability to start laying down super high quality engravings super early, yeah, you'll probably want to bring one. So let's do that. Let's see what we've got here. If we're going to make glass, we can do the furniture out of glass and we no longer require the mason. The only thing he's doing for us is blocks and furniture. The furniture we can do out of glass, and technically we can do the blocks out of glass if we really want to. But blocks are not a super high skill job. They don't have quality ratings, so anybody can do those. We'll take the engraver instead. We'll start out with an engraver. We'll have them start smoothing right away. We'll have them start on the public spaces as soon as we can get them excavated. Now, any leftover skill points, let's make sure we've got stuff left over. 30 food, 60 drink. That's actually a little more drink than I probably want to bring. Let's save some points. We'll have somebody settle into doing brewing fairly early, and there will be more dwarven wine down the road than we will ever have to worry about. Okay. That gets us some more skills. No, actually, I like that idea because one of the problems we ran into in the last fort, which was mostly me, but which was compounded by what I brought with me. Um, the primary issue was that I didn't notice the notification, and so I didn't jump on it right away. And when I did notice it, it was way late, and we didn't have time. Guild halls. Guild halls need value, and there are two ways to add value to a room or to a zone quickly: high quality furniture, particularly if it's of a high quality material, and engravings, smoothings, and engravings. Smoothings early is what we started on, but we just didn't get there done fast enough. Having an early engraver would allow us to smooth our temple. Remember, we still have to run that test. We have to put the no deity temple first, and then run all the specific temples above that in the stack, as it were, and see if that fixes our religious problem. If not, then the issue is that we only have to have the generic temple. 20 points. Okay, so let's make sure. Dogs, cats, sheep, pigs, and birds. 32 food, 20 sand. Ah, see right there, we would have got screwed. Who can spot what we're missing in this list? What did we not bring with us that is going to screw us on making items for our dwarves to use? Now, we could work around it, but it would delay us. What do we have that will prevent us from making forges on day one? Fireproof stone. That's right. We could take ash. We could take raw stone. I usually use gabbro. I love the name. But a few blocks along, or a few stone to make sure that we have uh, the ability to build forges. I need at least two because that gets you your smelter and your forge. A third one means I don't have to do anything crazy to get a log for the carpenter's workshop. He can just use a stone. Four gets me the mason's workshop if I want to have stone access once my guys with the picks start going to town immediately. Um, or, for example, a mechanic's workshop to make mechanisms. And we're not taking a mechanic with us, but we're going to try something a little different this time. And by a little different, I mean it's a lot different and maybe even a little dangerous. This is going to be fun. Yeah, it'll either work or it'll be hysterically bad. Hysterically bad, like re-embark bad. But I should have enough time to actually get to it before we actually have to cut off for the evening. So let's look again, make sure we've got everything. See, this is why we double check. This is why we look through our stuff, okay? Picks and axes are nice, but you don't necessarily have to have them, so I'm not looking for those. Must have an anvil to forge. Must have drinks if you're going to survive and not immediately start needing to brew right off the bat. Seeds for farming, materials for bronze, fuel for the bronze cycle to get started, some thread in case of moods, sand to get us some free bags, and to start glass making right away as soon as we can get a forge up for it. Um, 32 prepared food in its own barrels so that we get a big abundance of barrels right away and we don't have to make any of those to get us started for food storage and for brewing. As soon as we start eating meals, basically, as soon as we start eating this food down, we're going to start having free barrels left over. And stone to get our forges up. Okay, let's look back through the list. We don't need any food or drinks or vegetables or seeds. We've got all those. Dimple cups again or dye. We'll order them later. When we're ready to dye stuff, I'll just start ordering some seeds. We'll buy them from Sears. Oh wait, you can't. Let's see. Don't need any logs. We're going to a forest in this case. Otherwise, I would bring a couple. We could bring blocks, but again, raw stone is cheaper, and if I really want the blocks, I can make the stone into blocks. Powders. Gypsum plaster. There's a good call. Let's do some of that. Let's give up. What are we going to give up here? A couple units of cave spider silk thread. And we'll get us a few more units of gypsum plaster just off the bat. Now, realistically, you're hoping like hell you don't have to use it early. You really are. Gypsum plaster is for casts, and that means injured dwarves, and, well, the injured dwarves, as you can see, can be fun. So we're going to take these things, I think. See if there's anything else we need here. You cannot. Crutches. Dwarves who have problems with legs will use crutches. I'm not even sure if having no legs prevents them from using a crutch in each hand. Um, I'd have to look. That's one of those things I've never actually experimented with. Typically, if a dwarf is that badly injured, he's probably not making it back to the hospital. Um, but you never know. No peg legs. There are no implants in Dwarf Fortress. Let's see, we don't need any lye. No, no. So with those last 2 points, I'll just buy a couple of barrels of milk of different kinds. There's some milk. Don't care what kinds. Well, you'll have to talk to Toady about that. The problem is his generally deeper systems have made it difficult to add in things like that, I would suspect. That's a crazy reaction. I can't even imagine that. You put a dwarf in and he gets a leg? Wow. Can you imagine what the raw files would look like on that? Whoa. Wow. In the context of our usual fort naming convention, this is wow. I think we have to keep it, but it's not what we typically use. All right, so as before, we'll cut out a surface area for our dwarf,
Did you know that 9 out of every 10 embarkments end in complete
but,
disaster? I can't wait to see what
but,
awaits us here.
we're going to do it a little differently this time. Game mods. I don't have a real broad sound selection. It's pretty much just what comes with Sound Sense, but it helps fill in the lulls when I'm not talking. It should be audio ducking nicely, so you should be able to hear me over that without a problem, but if it's an issue, let me know. Alright, so as before, I zoom way the hell out so I can see what the hell I'm embarking on, and the volcano is going to be over here. That's this channel here. There's our magma pipe and full of magma, and it'll dive all the way down to where the magma sea will be somewhere down here. Zoop, and then where it disappears there, that's where we finally lose visibility, if probably into the magma sea and then into the semi-molten rock. So, um, that's where we'll be piping our magma from. I'll have to show you how to safely get magma into our fortress. Wow, this is a really steep, hilly zone, so we're going to have to manage some roads at some point, because otherwise we may run into an issue where the traders simply can't get up the hill between the trees, and we lose some of the treeness on the hills there. It looks like we lose a few of them, not quite as heavily wooded there. Nice big patches there, and there. Okay. So, fortress-wise, we're going to be wherever we want. We don't have a water source, do we? That's right, no water source this time, no brook. Got to go to the caverns for water. Okay. So that'll be fun. We'll have to build a pump, find the caverns, drill to water, build a tap, and pump ourselves a reservoir so that we can uh, have water. I'm betting there's no aquifer in the vicinity of the mountain region which comprises the volcano. So my hope is, if we build our fortress right about here, okay, We don't have to come up to the surface for anything, so we can build the actual underground layers here and go down. Depending on, may have to pasture spaces might be a problem, so I have to look at that. Might have to pasture spaces here because this is going to be sand and dirt here in one nice, neat, flat spot. I don't have to worry about it. We'll have to see what this is. So I can peek with reveal, but I'm not gonna. We'll make do. We'll find a way. But I'm thinking initially we just go right in here unless that's rock. So what do we got here? So that's stone. That's unfortunate. With some silt loam out here. Okay, so plan B. Plan B is we wall up this area and make it into a surface box as before in order to use it as pasture space, which means these trees have got to come down because they are super in the way. And we'll use this initial space here for where we build our workshops. It's only a short distance from the wagon, despite the fact that it's up, uphill. Dwarves don't care about that. It's only a short number of tiles from there to the wagon, so that's not too bad. It's roughly centrally located within the space. It's a relative flat space here that we can use for pasturing. We're liking this. We like this. Because it's automatically exposed, we can even put our butcher's workshops and our farmer's workshops up here on that level and not have to deal with miasma. As a temporary stopgap, we can then look at, if there's no aquifer, draining this pond into a catch basin to use as... Oh, so true story about a wildfire, Essequace. A few years ago, I embarked on stream near a volcano, just like this, only it was a flat volcano. We embarked in the middle of a forest with no hills and a magma pipe that came almost all the way up to the surface. And as I'm sitting there explaining the basics of building bronze, something happens. The grass is suddenly, I realize, it's all on fire. And it's coming our way. All of it. It's all going to burn. Everything, the whole map is just going to be flames. So literally, the only thing I can do, and the only thing I can think to do is just to trench around the wagon's a meeting area, so we just trenched around it, build a ditch, and waited for the fire to just sweep past us. That's all I could do. I mean, you couldn't go out in it. It was fire wave coming this way. The whole surface ashed by the time you were done. Smoke everywhere. This is before dwarves would complain about smoke as much, so nowadays, 5 years later, they'd still be complaining about that time they survived the wildfire. Now I have to do it for them. All right, so yeah, I'm liking this. This gives us a nice area full of wood. We can immediately cut and clear this. Yes, this will work. Okay, we can do this. So let's play them. I was initially planning to drop the wagon, but with its location, that doesn't really help us a whole lot. A little, yeah, okay, sure, but not a whole lot. Let me think here for a second. Well, since we have the picks, we can start with a hobbit hole. Adjacent to where the fortress will be, get everything inside, and then expand into the fortress proper. That's first. Let's do that. Okay, now this is not intended to be long-term living space, but the base is over here. This is out of the way. It's not going to hurt anything. And it's really close to the wagon. So we're going to get excavated really fast. And the goal being then, we'll come down here, build some basic beds and amenities over here, put in some storage over here, and just drag everything out of the wagon and pull it downstairs. And then, since it's all downstairs, we can seal this up. We don't need this access anymore. We can just floor it over with one piece of floor with a log, and we're done. We can then drill out from this temporary space over to where we will have our central area, in this space, and figure out how we're going to build the fortress proper. In the meantime, in order to take advantage of water, since this surface water, let's zoom out again. Zoom way out and take a look at the surface proper. I don't think there's any other water other than that one pond. There's some down here. Oh, there's another pond there and a little tiny one over here. But I don't think there's any other surface water. We do not have ample water supplies in this location. And that is a thing. So, cavern access quickly so we can figure out if there's going to be water in their first cavern or not. If there's not, we got to go deeper than that. That's bad. But we'll have to, because there is literally no other way to get water other than a catch basin. So catch basin first, and then caverns. This is the sorry, somebody else asked earlier and I didn't mention it either then. I'm sorry guys. If I do not answer your question, if you ask and I don't come up with an answer, it is not rude to ask again. Please do. This tile set is the Vetlinger tile set. If you're using the starter set, the starter pack, sometimes referred to as the lazy noob pack, it's the 32X tile set in that package. It's a nice clean tile set if you have a bigger monitor. You can zoom in on the trees and the ground, and there's a lot of detail in that tile set. There's a bunch of detail in these peacocks that you don't normally see because I am zoomed way out, way out. If you're one of those folks who's playing on a monitor the size of your wall, and you can afford to have every peacock be 2 inches tall and still see everything that's going on your map, well then, this is probably going to be completely awesome for you. It's okay for me, it works. If I want to go in and zoom in close and look at things, they look pretty, and it allows me enough detail on my 1920 by 1080 monitor that I can get out to about here, still tell kind of what's going on without having a problem, and follow along. If it starts to look blurry, or you don't know what's going on, or you have a question about anything as we go along, feel free to ask. The whole point is, well, I take that back. The whole point is not that. The whole point is this thing down over here in the corner, actually. But this thing down here in the corner is handled by me showing you what we're doing here. So that's the idea. This little hobbit hole is intended to get us a place to put our dwarves in. This is just storage and a place to throw shit. And that's the goal initially. We're going to throw up a forge right above that. In fact, we'll throw up 2 smelters so we can chug through that as fast as we can. We don't have anybody skilled in furnace operations, so we're not really losing anything there. I don't want to cut these trees. Normally I would, but not yet anyway. Later on I might cut them and not worry about the consequences, but either now I need to temporarily delay this while we cut the trees, or I need to not cut them because they will punch holes in our ceiling. So let's do that real quick. Let's stop the dwarves here if they're not okay. So they haven't started yet, so that's good. Let's stop them for a second from doing that, just for a moment. And let's get rid of the trees. We brought 1 battle axe with us, so we have tree removal started. Once that's done, we can throw down a stockpile to keep the trees from regrowing. This is only necessary in areas where the logs might strike from above a floor like this one, which is going to have nothing under it because there'll be a hollow under it when this is done. And if that happens, what'll happen is the log will hit that floor and go, ah, no, I'm punching on through. And you now have a hole in your ceiling, and the log probably crushed the dwarf that was underneath it. You don't want that. So if you're going to fell trees over your pancake stack, make sure you cut the trees first and then get rid of their ability to regrow. You do not want trees growing above your fortress when you build them the way I do. Very bad. Ends very poorly. Okay, so duties. And I ain't talking about diapers. Everybody gets architecture. Everybody who ain't a miner gets wood cutting. We only have the one axe. We only have the one axe. Yeah, so true story. I made it a habit every year to download Dwarf the starter pack initially and do it from scratch every year. And this year I didn't show everybody installing the sound packs for SoundSense, and I didn't show you some of the configuration you can do. I kind of feel bad about that, but we'll get over it. One of the things I didn't have to do though because of that is I didn't have to reinstall dark mode. I didn't get through 5 streams before somebody said, "Hey, where's your dark mode, man?" Dark mode is awesome. Get dark mode. Otherwise, that screen is a blinding sheet of white paper. I've been informed on stream it's like looking into a nuclear blast. I can believe it. Right on, Dropkick. So we've gotten started. We're not going to get real far. We've got started. And as soon as these trees are done... Oh, wait. What did we not do? God damn, we wasted 2 days or 3 days already. Holy hell. Oh, we can't do it yet. These aren't even built. These aren't even built. Okay. Is our only mason... Ah, that's right. We didn't bring a mason this time. So I need a mason. Because otherwise you don't get your forges built. Okay, so now we've got forges. Now to start, remember, we have to make sure we're very careful about how much fuel we burn right off the bat. So the first thing we do is bituminous coal. And put it on repeat. And let it run once. And someone will drag a unit of coal down here. They'll make coke. And as soon as that's done, we'll put repeat on coke over here and build them and set them both up to do bronze. Nobody has furnace operation. That's why nobody's doing the job. There comes our coke. And now we're getting it done. All right. Now, it shouldn't take long. Let's double check. Nope. He is right now using our only unit of fuel to make more. And now he's done. So he's going to grab another unit of coke, or excuse me, another unit of coal, and then use one of the units of coke he got just now to do that, to make more. And once that happens, we can set the other cycle up. And we can chug through the bronze. Alright, so now he's made enough coke to get us going. He can now start making, on alternate cycles, bronze. He will already have started another coke job to get us ahead of the bronze cycle. Likewise, over here, the first thing you're going to have him make is fuel. And you're going to get in, you're going to put it on repeat, just like before. And once that runs, because you've got enough fuel to run all these cycles to get them started, you can start bronze. And bang, we're going to have bronze right off the bat. And we'll have a couple people producing bronze for us. Now, let's get our entrance done here, because we need to get downstairs now that we have the trees removed. Now that we've assured the safety of our ceiling, let's make it a ceiling. And by gentle happenstance, we were just past the area where it became a problem. Okay, so that should be guy with a pick downstairs. Bang. Now he's off and digging. Both guys with picks will be downstairs now. Good. We're off and running in our hobbit hole with our hobbit hole. While they're doing that, these guys are up to producing bronze now, or should be very soon. So we'll make sure we've seen somebody hauling something back. Either they'll haul back a fuel and they are done, or they're hauling back a bronze and we know that they're doing a bronze for us. What are you hauling? What do you got? He's hauling stones that are bronze. This guy's hauling stones as bronze, so yeah. And that's the other one right there. One is cassiterite and the other is tin, so they're making us bronze right now. Okay. Let that run one cycle so we get a bunch of bronze bars made out of each furnace. Bang, bang. And then we can start making picks for everyone. And then we will excavate proper. What? Proper fucked? Yeah. Tell me, right before the Germans get there. Alright, so now we're off and running picks. We've got plenty of wood here to get our carpenter started, so let's get that up. Let's get that up downstairs. And we won't have to move it. At least not right away. Get a bed up. Consider me taught, boys. Lesson learned. I have hit aquifers before, but that 9-tier aquifer was a bit much. In hindsight, I should have handled it differently than I did, but still a lot of work that we did not plan on early. So, hobbit hole early. That's the new plan. Build them beds. Okay, and now our miners have finished up what will become our temporary living and storage quarters. Everybody will live in one room here in one staircase right below the forges that we built on the surface. This is our fort for right now, anyway. But we're not done. Unless my eyeball misses, that circle right there that I'm looking at, that rough outline of a partial circle right here, is about 31 by 31. We do need water, but I'm thinking about a tunnel straight to the well, straight to the hospital, with an enemy excluder. Because I can drop this down. If the central base is here, I can drop this into a catch basin underground right off of where the hospital's built. It's going to be beautiful. Let's get rid of these trees. Because we're sure they're all in the wrong place right now. Wrong place, wrong time. Now, one of those guys is our carpenter, and the other may be very well be our weaponsmith, so wood cutting may take a minute, but that's okay. We need to make picks. Oh man, that really does look like 31. Well, let's find out. Oh yeah, fits right in there. Look at that. Bang, right in the middle. Smashing. So we can go up a floor and clear back the land if we want. And put walls up around this if we want. And clear it back so that we can actually dig a moat around our base and use that as our maximum floor plan. Do everything inside this 31 by 31 circle. So we'll still have the pancake stack, and it won't normally be this broad. But we know that we can go out to this maximum radius from this point and be assured that we are within what our fortress will be. So now that's far enough away even that the water. But see, now I can like dig out right here and drop the water into a catch basin. So yeah, this is going to be wonderful. Sorry for the guy who has his bed there, but yeah. And the miners will come along, and suddenly that little doorway gives us access to where we'll eventually put our main fortress. And we've got plenty of miners to dig now. So we can go parallel on that floor pretty quick and start on our main shaft. I'm not too worried about aquifers in this case because of the proximity to the volcano. But again, we're working on downstairs as fast as possible. So now let's get a stockpile out. Holy cow, stockpile? Yeah, you better believe it right now. And I want it to be the size of the room minus 2 workshops. 2 workshops above it here. So I can put a few more in here if I need to. And we will take all the bins, all the barrels, and hold everything. If it's something we could have brought with us, I want it in here. And make a few bins so we can store them. pretty sure we've gone through the bituminous coal already. So now we're down to whatever's left of our... Wow, they've already gone through the bronze too. Good job, guys. Going absolutely hell-bent for election. Look at them go. All right, so let's get some bronze, other bronze stuff up that we need. We don't really need 10 axes, but that gives us something to equip our military with right away. In addition to the picks, you can use picks. They work, but we already have the 1 axe, of course, that we brought with us, so that'll give us 11. I don't need your axe. I'll make my own. Things not said in Lord of the Rings. Okay, let's take a look here. What do we got? Okay, still cranking the axes. Seeing as you can see, they've made their way to the top over here. Oh, that's bad. Stop them there. So we're going to stop all your work here temporarily, boys, because somebody hasn't yet felled all those trees like I thought they would have by now. And although I don't think any of the trees in this case are, well, maybe that one. Maybe that one is problematic. But the rest of them should be okay. We may get an accident here in a second, but we'll make do. Now he finally gets over there to cut the tree, you lazy bastard. See if we cause a problem. Nope, we got away with it. If the trees are tall enough, they'll hit the floor with enough force to go through. But it doesn't happen every time. If they're short trees, short stubby trees like this one only had 3 logs in it, so it could have been very big. Most of these trees are fairly stubby. They're just like 1 level, 2 levels. So small tree may not have a problem, but a big tall one with lots of branches that stick way out can extend over your fortress before you know it, and you got a problem. Okay, so now that works. We want to go ahead. Why is that not dug out? Why did you stop, guys? They must be getting a drink or something. Okay, that's fine. Put them back to work on the rest of this again because we want them to finish. Alright, so what are we all doing here? What's up, guys? What are we all doing? Storing, carving, felling. Okay, all good things. All good things. Except drinking, wasting time. Hopefully we brought in the sandbags, but if not, I need to disable that momentarily to make sure that the bins get used for storing things here shortly. I know we had a bin. Come on, man. We didn't make a bin, right? No, he didn't. It's probably the only guy got cutting trees. Yep. Well, we're we're taking your axe away, man, because I need some bins. And we'll have fun, fun, fun till Nero takes his axe away. Need to get a whip crack sound effect. Go back and find that old Dungeon Keeper 1 intermission screen and click on a few of those doors. Dwarf is berserking, axe taken away. That's a little closer to reality. Okay, so we've got everything. I mean, guessing most things are indoors now. Yeah, some food in the barrels still in here. Some thread. Some tools and bars. Okay, all of which is going to go downstairs here as soon as bins start being made and space gets freed up. And that's really what it's going to come down to, is when the bins get made. And there'll be a flurry of activity as they organize stuff into the bins. But, yeah. Storage space means we have a place to put things, and everything is indoors. Dwarves are underground for the most part. We are in a good place to get started. However, here's the bad news. It is now 10:10. Boys and girls, we are over our time once again. We are averaging more than 3 hours a night in service to charity this year. That's right, we've done more than 21 hours of streaming already this month. And I'm not a professional streamer, boys and girls. I do this just for charity one time a year. Alright, so here's the plan for tomorrow. Since we've got everything primarily indoors, I'm going to need to see whether this area is... I'll bet this is all stone, or a lot of it is stone. Yeah, it looks like we might get lucky, though. It looks like there's stone mixed in, but there's... Wow, and there's hematite right there. Looks like iron's back on the menu, boys. Okay, so... Yeah, let's... Has he finished all those? No, not yet. Okay, so we need somebody to finish those before we actually go out and finish excavating this to the far reaches there. Okay. Temporarily, we don't need any mining done. Let's finish this up a little bit up before I leave, so I don't screw it up when I come back and drop a tree through our roof. We've got plenty of battle axes to get everybody cutting trees, so we should have lots of logs here momentarily. Timber, as it were. Get this done real quick so I don't screw it up and drop a log through our fortress. Yeah, see, that's a bad sign. 2 logs fell into the fortress. See how? Yeah. That's exactly what we're worried about right there. There's a hole here now. Hole. Okay, those have got to get fixed. You're not saving anybody, logs. You put holes in my roof, I use you to make new roof. That's how this works. You're not saving anybody. Oh, wait, sorry. Don't want to make fortifications, though, do we? Nope, that's bad. Let's not do that. Ahem. New roof, as I was saying. Ta-da! Roof. Now, if you want to be really careful, really careful, you put on your K check, you look for light in places where it shouldn't be on this first floor. If any of this first floor lights up as light, and this is a little, pardon my saying so, but this is a bit retentive in the sense that we are going to run over every tile on this first floor, but I am doing it for a reason in this case, because floor holes have a tendency to be a little... See, like this is inside light above ground. Inside means we floored it over. Light means it's been exposed to surface light at least once, and above ground means there was at least at some point no ceiling above it. So these two kind of go hand in hand. We could grow surface crops or surface grass on this space, but we will never again be able to grow subterranean crops. Since it's inside, we know we built the roof over it though, so we're good here. We can move on. And all of the tiles except the ones that we built roof over should be dark. And again, this is a little bit, there's a word for that. Oh, yeah, that's the other one. We're good, we're good, we're good. Because there are two tiles here, 1, 2. Oh, that's interesting. Apparently the log fell through and then bounced over here. Neat. It's a little tedious, but in this case, it's the only way I know of. Well, I take the back. I can think of another one now that I'm doing it this way. I can think of another way to do it now that I'm thinking about it. If there were a hole, in fact, I think I can see one right there. Is that a hole? Yeah, that says it's a hole. Yeah, there's a hole there we haven't built. So what you could do is, I think Dwarven radar will fix this problem. To a degree. See, you can spot the holes, but you gotta watch because these gray spots are bare stone chunks, basically, where there's no soil to plant. So, with text will be text on like this, you can see the hole is darker, and you can kind of sweep around and spot where there's, any holes that are left. Just the one. But now you understand why I wanted to look, because floor holes have this nasty tendency to be everywhere but where you think they are, and hell, one of those tiles could have been a hole, could have had no ceiling when we started. I don't know. No, the word I was thinking of was anal retentive, but pedantic is what I normally do. That's just normal. I mean, if you didn't tune in to hear somebody wax extensively about Dwarf Fortress, you may have found the wrong stream. Just saying. One of the guys who comes out to support me every year comments that, this is the best, that this is his favorite, one of his favorite DF streams, and, the worst thing about it is that I don't do it all year long. And as I commented back to him, I says, my wife says the best thing about it is that I don't do it all year long. No, it's all good, man. I'm teasing. My wife actually commented the other day. She said, it's funny. I mentioned something on stream, and she asked me a question from behind me, because she's heard me do this for enough years now that without actually playing Dwarf Fortress, she has a fairly reasonable idea of the sorts of things that you'll have to watch out for. Okay, so good question. Um, I'm biased. I don't really do infinite stockpiles very often. Uh, I respect them. I don't think they're bad. I don't think that they're a negative way to build your fortress. I'm not going to impugn them and go, oh my god, that's an exploit, it's terrible. It is a little exploitative, but you'll see me do things that are exploitative, so I don't really have a problem with using exploits to work around Dwarf Fortress. Dwarf Fortress is one of those, for lack of a better word, DM as enemy kind of games. This thing is not going to pull any punches with your dwarves. You just saw some event, and I'm not even sure what it was, butchered 40 or 50 of my 100-strong fortress right in the middle of the dining room. It didn't come through my front door. It started in the middle of the dining room. Some sort of loyalty cascade, maybe. And we lost everybody. So, I mean, taking advantage of the game, if you will. Anybody who's purist enough to insist on that is not going to be found found watching my stream for very long. I do all kinds of things. I play with DF Hack, for example, that aren't vanilla or that deviate from, let's call it realistic play, I guess. But typically, the only time I'll use an infinite stockpile would be as if I was stockpiling a truly, truly enormous quantity of something for some very specific purpose in that area. And I've demonstrated infinite stockpiles, quantum stockpiles, on stream before. But normally the only reason I would typically use one is if I were going to build, say, a large surface construction, I don't want to have a surface spanning stockpile. To do that. So I might do a quantum stockpile near where I wanted it for those things. But, or, maybe stones for siege weapon ammunition, right? If you're throwing them with catapults. But there aren't many cases where I want one. I don't like the way they make me feel icky. And there's no reason for it, really. Like I said, this is not the kind of game where you turn your nose up at an exploit like I fill a minecart full of magma and have a dwarf carry the minecart on his back to where I want it, and the dwarf is fine. Despite the fact that he's carrying around a minecart full of lava. Have used. Don't use often. That's kind of where I sit on it. And I'm ambivalent about them. If Toady fixed them, it wouldn't bother me one way or the other since I don't use them really. And I recognize full well why people use them. Cutting down on storage and minimizing floor space is a way to reduce pathfinding and therefore keep your CPU space, your CPU time up. So it's a trade-off. Spreading my stuff out with bins like I do, creating this extra storage space like I do, damages my fort in a sense by virtue of taxing pathfinding. So I suppose if you were going to consider it from an objective point of view, you really need to ask yourself what you're trying to accomplish, because an infinite stockpile can certainly accomplish certain things better than doing it the way I do. And normally I don't get stuff out of bins. If it's stuff I'm selling to the elves, I'll sell stuff that isn't made of wood, and it's usually not a big deal to fish around the bins. Um, that's the only time that bins really give me an issue. I can't remember the last time I had problems with archers taking stuff out of bins. I sometimes see folks mentioning problems with that. I'm guessing there's a bug there, but I don't know what it is. I've never really run into it that I know of. That's about it. I mean, bins, from my standpoint, are a way to clear up all my giant amounts of trade good clutter, if nothing else. Give me someplace to store my blocks so they don't take up the entire world. So let's see. Good news, we can still do some surface farming in this area. Now that that's been completely excavated, our tree cut back. Now this stockpile is not actually a stockpile. It doesn't actually have anything allowed. We don't put anything in it by default. The wood that's there is just by happenstance. The entire purpose of that entire footprint we just stamped down is to prevent any trees from growing in that space. So now that that's done, I know that that's good. And this also outlines the outer edge of what will eventually become our fortress. So any walls we need to build up need to be around this space, and that shows me how much area we're going to have to prune back here. Okay, guys, I am going to leave it here for tonight. Any questions before I go? If not, I'm going to see you all back here tomorrow at 7 o'clock again for day 8. 37 days of Dwarf. All right, now before you guys go, let's see if there's someone we can't set you loose on out there in Dwarf Fortress land. Looks like we've got at least one guy out there still playing Dwarf Fortress. All right, guys, I'm going to bid you good night, and I will see you tomorrow. Have fun.